Good evening, everyone. We're here for a city council meeting. It is Monday, May 1st, 2017. We'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom. Here. Drew. Solomon. Here. Doyle. Here. Estes. Scott. Here. Laurenti. Here. Wright. Here. Modrick. Here. Roberts. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next we'll have the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation tonight is by Roger Gallimore of the YMCA.
Thank you. The Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night and said, "Ask, what shall I give you?" And Solomon said, "O Lord my God, you have made your servant king, but I am a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. Therefore give to your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil, for who is able to judge this great people of yours?" The speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. Then God said to him, "Because you have asked this thing and have not asked long life for yourself, nor have asked riches for yourself, nor have asked the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself understanding to discern justice, behold, I have done according to your words. See, I have given you a wise and understanding heart." Like Solomon, I confess that on my own, I don't know what I'm doing. Please join me as I share with you the prayer I daily pray for myself, and now I pray for you. Almighty God and gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for those who serve as elected officials and staff members for the city of Rapid City. I praise you for the work you accomplish in them and through them. Grant to each a wise and understanding heart in their service to the benefit of our community. Through Jesus Christ. Amen. United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. And now on to the adoption of the agenda. This is a time when we can make modifications to or adopt the agenda, and I have a request to move the executive session and the staff direction to the end of the agenda after item 103.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Scott and a second by Modrick for that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to go down front for a couple of awards. Well, tonight we have the honor of recognizing a long-term employee. It's always a pleasure to do that. We look around here and some of us look old, some of us don't, but Jeannie has been here for 25 years, and Dale Tech's going to introduce her.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my pleasure tonight to recognize Jeannie Nicholson of the Community Planning Department on her 25 years of service. Jeannie got started with the city May 18th, 1992, working in the police department as a clerk. In 1993, then she came to work at what was then the combined Pennington County City of Rapid City Planning Department, and worked there until 1999 when she went to work for the Civic Center. In 2003, then Jeannie returned to the City Planning Department, and then in 2010 was promoted to the Administrative Assistant for the Community Planning and Development Service Division. So congratulations to Jeannie on your 25 years, and thanks for all you do for the city. I appreciate it.
If we could have all the firefighters come forward. Just firefighters. I have an executive proclamation recognizing International Firefighters Day. Daryl Shoemaker flashes the camera in my eyes and then wants me to read an executive proclamation, so I'm stalling a little bit. Whereas International Firefighters Day is observed each year on May 4th to honor and remember past firefighters who have lost their lives while serving their communities, to express gratitude to those that have served in this line of work, and to show support and appreciation for those who presently serve. And whereas, regardless of the language a firefighter speaks or the country in which he or she works and resides, all firefighters fight against the same enemy, fire. And whereas firefighters follow a long line of tradition and honor that inspires them to help colleagues, neighbors, and strangers alike, and whereas at a moment's notice, firefighters are quick to respond to uncertain situations, to mitigate danger and combat the threat of destructive fire in order to protect individuals, families, and the economic being of our community. And whereas the demands of firefighting are accomplished by both personal and physical tolls that all firefighters knowingly accept while risking their lives to protect the lives of others. Now therefore, I, Steve Allender, Mayor of Rapid City, do hereby proclaim May 4th, 2017 as International Firefighters Day in Rapid City, and encourage all citizens to show support and appreciation to our city, county, state, and federal firefighters who protect our lives and property so diligently throughout the year. And by remembering past firefighters who dedicated their lives, and in some cases gave their lives to preserve our safety. Let's recognize these folks. And by the way, this is not the first time that all these individuals have had my back, and they're here for us every day, and we truly appreciate the resources we have in Rapid City and the level of professionalism. It is quite remarkable. Would anyone like to say a few words?
Because I know nobody else is going to, because they're very uncomfortable that they even got called up here. You know, as firefighters, we're humble, and so when I got to reading about International Firefighter Day, I must admit that I'd never heard about it. And it was actually developed in 1999 after 5 firefighters lost their lives in Australia in 1998, battling a wildland fire. And so I thought, you know, we don't like the spotlight and we'll run like cockroaches from it, but when we look at it, what this day means, it's about us being able to honor those that have come before us and honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifice. So, thank you. You want this? Yeah. Everybody gather around.
Oh, you want a group? Falling back.
Right here, 2 shots, 1, 2. One more.
And finally, is Carla Garner here? Could you come up, please? It's because I wore a tie. Well, now we're going to recognize Carla Garner as the Early Childhood Educator of the Year. And early childhood education is something that is extremely important to our community. And I can sum it up very briefly by saying that many times politicians and government bodies speak of things like workforce development and economic development and that sort of thing, but there's very little meat on that bone. Sometimes there's not as much action as there are words behind that type of discussion. But if we're talking about workforce development, taking folks that are not skilled and giving them a skill so that they can become productive, become producers instead of consumers, it's very difficult with an adult. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. And the time to start doing that is not when you graduate high school. It's not when you're in middle school or grade school. It's prior to kindergarten, and it's in those first few years of elementary school. The difference in early childhood education means the difference between being homeless or having a home, being employed or being jobless, successful or a failure. And so I'm glad that we have people and programs that are doing something about keeping our children educated and keeping the summer education drain from occurring by offering summer programs and focusing on the kids that are having trouble for one reason or the other, focusing on their own education. So I have an executive proclamation here, and I'll read this. Whereas all children need and deserve high-quality learning experiences that will prepare them for life. And whereas quality education from the start of a child's life is vital to building a strong community, state, and country. And whereas it is important to recognize and support the people and programs that are committed to providing high-quality early childhood education and services. And whereas Carla Garner of the YMCA Child Care Program has been a driving force behind the promotion and implementation of developmentally appropriate practice, also known as DAP, in the early childhood field at the YMCA for nearly 20 years. And whereas she has positively impacted the lives of over 400 children and their families by building relationships and striving to provide the best opportunities possible for those who have and continue to attend her preschool program. And whereas Carla creates a learning opportunity for each student which encourages them to be lifelong learners who will become well-adjusted, productive young people. And whereas the evaluation of Carla's teaching career by a panel of professional outside judges was outstanding. Now, therefore, I, Steve Allender, Mayor of Rapid City, do hereby proclaim Carla Garner on May 1st, 2017 as the Rapid City Early Childhood Educator of the Year, and encourage all residents to commit ourselves to ensuring that every child experiences a conducive environment that will promote their early learning. Congratulations.
I'm about as tall as my kids. Being honored tonight has been amazing. I have worked with children for a very, very long time, and if you collectively looked at all the experience behind me too, we've all been there, and we've all been there for a long time. Having you and having the community realize that early childhood learning is the beginning, and we have to see that as that, and to know how important it is, and how important that we have people who are willing to be trained and to understand and to get to know the kids and their families and know that their relationships are developed, and so then therefore we have a community. And so with that, I thank all of you for being behind me and beside me and with me, and I thank all of you for your support as well. Thank you.
I'm a little taller than Carla. We would also, as part of this award, like to present Carla with a plaque that commemorates her winning this award, as well as a small token of gratitude of $500. A piece from one of her nomination forms says, "Carla is deserving of this award because she believes in the potential of all children. She is a lifelong learner herself and continues to develop and improve her teaching skills with each new year. She avidly enjoys reading the newest research in the field and is open to trying new ideas that will make a positive impact for children. Carla desires to make an impact in the lives of children, which ultimately impacts our world in a positive way. She is, and always will be, an early childhood educator that gives 110% to those children entrusted to her. She is your Early Childhood Educator of the Year."
Next is the time for general public comment. There are no speaker request forms for general comment. Then on to non-public hearing items, items 4 through 97. There are no speaker requests for items 4 through 39. So we'll go on to consent items, items 4 through 39. Does the council have any items that they wish to pull from the consent calendar? Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 33, please.
Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 29, please.
Jerry Wright. Okay, seeing no others, I entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exceptions of 16, 22, 29, and 33.
So moved.
Motion by Steve Laurenti, second by Charity Doyle. Now on to item number 16, which is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign amendment number 2 between the City of Rapid City and Banner Associates. Oh, I'm sorry. Vote on the consent. Okay, we had a motion and a second. Who wants to approve the consent with those exceptions, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, on to item number 16. To authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign amendment number 2 between the City of Rapid City and Banner Associates Incorporated for water reclamation facility potable water improvements in the amount of $4,000. And we'll go to Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring this item up because it's related to an item later. Had some calls since this issue has been before us the time before. And I just want to share the council needs to be aware of the fact that when contractors do bids, they are not paid for the processing of their bids. And the only chance they have of recovering any cost of that bid is when they win. In this situation, we saw 5 bidders and only one walks away with the prize. And I'm sitting there kind of wondering, when we hire a consulting firm to engineer a project and to do the estimates, why they don't have the same fate, so to speak, the reissue or redoing the bid, why we pay them more or why we shouldn't. I think we should talk about that a little bit and look into it. Thank you.
Amanda Scott?
Mayor, may I ask Mr. Dale Tech a question concerning this?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Dale, as Alderman Wright had indicated, this, if I understand this correctly, and this is my question to you, this additional $4,000 is based on the Banner Associates republishing for bid? I mean, did they have to change any major plan? Did the plans change substantially in order for them to need $4,000 more?
The plans did not change substantially. However, the plans did change, and this reflects the effort that was put in to changing the plans. As you recall, this was related to the bid that the council rejected all the bids and asked the staff to re-advertise. So this was the effort that the consultant expended doing that. Their original scope of services included one bid package. When they have to go back and do it again, it costs them additional dollars, therefore costing the city additional dollars as well.
And I can understand that, so, but this, and I don't know what it costs to put out a bid package, which is why I'm asking you, is just $4,000 to me is a lot of money. So if the plans didn't change substantially, I mean, I'm just looking for you to make me feel better that $4,000 is a reasonable amount to republish for bid.
Yes, staff reviewed the costs that were submitted by Banner, and $4,000 is a reasonable cost for the effort that they put into repackaging the bid.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Richie Nordstrom.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve by Jason Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes with 1 no from Jerry Wright. On item number 22, authorize Mayor and Finance Officer to sign amendment number 1 with Burns and McDonnell for landfill gas collection expansion cells 13, 14, and 17. And we'll go to Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to share with the council, because my time is short, and this may not be back before I leave. I'm sure it won't be. But I think one thing that needs to be included into the development of our landfill gas system is the potential of using a generator that uses the landfill gas as its source of energy. There was a paper done last fall by a student, and I actually participated with it. And the issue is concerned is the flow in CFM, the cubic feet per minute of gas. When they add the additional fields on, they should have the quantity to run the generators according to the manufacturers. This is really important for 2 reasons. Number 1, we're currently flaring the gas, which we have to do, but we should be using it somehow with a beneficial use to either the community or the city. And for instance, most people do not know that the power bill at the plant is about $400,000 a year. And theoretically, if the gas flow stabilizes, we get enough flow, we can generate enough electricity with that gas to offset a significant, if not all of that amount of electricity that we purchase on an annual basis. This is a big deal, and we need to stay on top of it and stay in touch with it and expect that if at all possible. Thank you.
Okay, need a motion on 22? Is that a motion by Jerry Wright and approval by Jason Solomon? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 29, to uphold staff's denial of an exception request from KTM Design Solutions for Buffalo East LLC to waive the requirements for installation and alignment of water and sanitary sewer mains and services in accordance with Rapid City Municipal Ordinance 13.04.270 and the Infrastructure Design Criteria Manual, Figure 3-6. We'll go to Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge applicant's withdrawal of this appeal.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Jason Solomon. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. On to item number 33, to amend the request for reallocation of the fiscal year 2016 and 2017 Community Development Block Grant contingency funds recommendations by awarding $75,000 to Youth and Family Services and $75,000 to Freeland Ranch Community Incorporated out of the approximately $249,000 allocated to demolition and land acquisition for small affordable housing, and recommend approval of the funding reallocation as amended. We'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First thing I want to do is acknowledge the investment committee that works on this and the good work they did and doing the homework to make sure these are allocated properly. We did get a request from YFS. They requested $300,000, $100,000 of which they've already received to correct some drainage issues in their alley. Tonight, I'd like to see us make a goal to try to fully fund that $300,000 if possible. And if I could call up, is someone here from YFS? Susan here. Could you come up to the podium, please?
Sure.
Do you want to tell everybody who you are?
My name is Susan Fidel. I'm CEO of Youth and Family Services.
Thanks for coming tonight, Susan. So can you describe the project that these funds are looking to address?
Sure. I apologize I didn't bring a map with me tonight, but we're getting ready to, we hope we're getting ready to do a building expansion. And in the process of doing that, we need to correct some drainage problems. We get a lot of water that comes down off of the hill behind our property, and some of it flows onto neighboring properties, and some of it flows onto our property, and some of it kind of floods streets. And so we've had engineers working with our architect to see what we could do to revamp the alleyway so that we can direct the water in ways that it will be much less damaging to the properties in our area. Okay. So that's what we're trying to do with this. And the total cost of the project, once we got the final drawings and everything, is $287,000.
Okay. So if you were fully funded, would you be ready to go? Are these concrete plans? These aren't things that you hope to do someday, but these are monies you would put to use quickly. Is that right?
Right. And we've had the engineer and architect assure us that we could be done with this by the end of the fiscal year, or the calendar year, I should say.
Okay, Susan. That's all I have for now. You might want to stand by for more questions. I'll yield for now.
Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Chair. And Susan, thank you for being here tonight. My question to you is, as I recommended at Legal and Finance to increase this allocation for this project, my question to you is, what was the plan prior to this additional allocation we did at Legal and Finance? What were we looking at for an end or a completion date of this particular project?
December 31st, although we think it will be by the probably middle of the fall.
Okay, so the funds were there, right? Or I mean, what the sources are concrete, we're ready to go. Am I understanding that correctly?
I'm sorry.
Well,
what are you asking?
We're doing this additional allocation of $75,000. Right. What is that defraying for YFS? What is that going to do for this project?
Well, we've raised money to do the building renovation and building expansion. If we have to use some of that money to do the alleyway, it means we've got that much less to do the actual building construction. So it would defray those costs for us. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I guess my question is, we've allocated this additional $75,000 to make sure that this project is done. My question to you, I guess, really is, you have the funds to be able to do this project, am I correct?
If we have to, but it means we'll not have the money someplace else.
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that this project's going to happen. This $75,000 is going to go a long ways at defraying and helping them do some other things that they want to do in their mission. So I just want to make sure that we're all aware of that before we go down the road of trying to allocate an entire 300,000, this project's going to happen. So I just want to make that clear to my colleagues that we need to be careful. In my opinion, I think we ought to try to spread the CDBG funds out as much as we possibly can, trying to help as many different efforts in Rapid City, which I think is what the thrust of the funds is for. And so I just want to make sure that we don't throw all of our eggs in one basket, if you will. And it's a great cause, don't get me wrong, but I think they're set and they're ready to go with this. And that's why I wanted to allocate this additional $75,000 at Legal and Finance, because I just wanted to make sure that, one, that this project happened, and to further help YFS with other things that they're planning to do in the future. Thank you.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could, when we talked about legal and finance, I'm trying to remember. It seems like you already had 100,000 marked for this project first.
We do, from CDBG, from a previous allocation, and then
so
this 75,000.
The 75 would help quite a bit. Another point I want to make is that this isn't just Youth and Family Services, but it's also correcting drainage with the neighbors around Youth and Family Services, which is really important, because that's being responsible as the city as well as the partnership with Youth and Family Services for the neighborhood around. They've been feeling the drainage for a long time, as you have on the properties, and so this helps many, and the project and the children, and allowing that building to go if we move those funds over. So it's great that you have the 100,000 there, and then we've got the 75. I kind of like what Jason said. We're really close if we pencil it down, but I appreciate the fact that it's solving the neighborhood as well as YFS, and I wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Yeah, and it is a public alley.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Susan, I may come back to you, but I'd like to first start, because I'm trying to play catch-up on this one since I wasn't here for the last couple weeks, but I did stream the Legal and Finance Committee meeting. So may I ask Mr. Dale Tack a question?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Dale, are you familiar with this alley that Susan is talking about?
I am not.
Okay, thank you. I think you're in the same boat that I'm in. So let me make some comments, Susan, before I ask you a question about this. So if you don't mind reapproaching the podium. I'm a little confused because I understand it's a public alleyway, but I'm hearing drainage. And we passed a drainage utility fund fee that all parcels participate in so that we can handle different drainage issues. I'm having a problem allocating more funds out of the CDGB, I can never get that right, to handle an item that we already have a separate fund for.
Well, I spoke with some people from the planning department earlier about that, and I was told that there are, let me remember. It seems like she said there were over $100 million worth of projects that really need to be done to help drainage in the city, and they get a very small amount of that every year, an important amount, but they get an amount of that every year. But when I asked if there was any money that might be available to help us, I was told it would be a long ways down the road before we would get assistance there.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that, but then here's my throwback. If there's $100 million worth of other projects that could use that money, why aren't we allocating this $75,000 to one of those other more important drainage projects if this drainage project doesn't reach the level of being handled at this point? Again, we're talking different funds for different projects, so I'm just really having a hard time. You already got $100,000 earmarked from this same fund for this project. And now, as of the Legal and Finance Committee, they allocated, or they made the recommendation to allocate another $75,000 to that. I don't think I can support this, only because the commingling of these funds is, I think, where we're really having a hard time as a city paying for all the infrastructure that we're trying to get done. We keep kind of siphoning the funds off. And then primarily, I still have a couple minutes. Thank you, Susan. Barb Garcia, I see you sitting in the back of the room. Would you mind answering a question for me, Barb? Hi, Barb.
Hi.
I did stream the Legal and Finance, and I was quite concerned, Barb. So I'm going to ask you to either correct me or help me understand what you said, because what I heard you say, this is me, what I heard you say is that the committee allocated these funds. First of all, it says 2016, 2017. Are these funds we already have, or is this part of that federal money that is maybe we have, maybe we don't have?
It is half and half. Half of the funds, the 2016 money, we already have.
And how much is that?
That was $367,104.
But that's not this 249 that we're talking about.
It is part of the, no, the 249 is in the 2017 column, which is this year's money we don't have yet.
Thank you, Barb, because that's the way I understood it all the years that I've worked with you since I've been on city council. So here's my other heartburn. I have an issue reallocating money that we may or may not get yet. So the committee had put this money or allocated this money for the city itself for demolition and land acquisition for affordable housing. And so when I streamed this, I was very concerned, number one, that we're trying to allocate funds that we may not have. We don't know. It's a big question mark out there right now. And the second thing is that, and here's my question to you, Barb, I thought I heard you say that you thought it would be difficult if the city is awarded these funds, that you would be able to spend these funds in an appropriate time. Did I misunderstand what I heard you say?
Okay, let me answer the first part first. We have to make a determination of our funding based on estimates up front because of the HUD deadlines for our applications. This application technically was due in February. So we start in October so that we can have the plans ready to submit in February. Because Congress hadn't done the budget the last 15 years on time, they have asked us to wait until we actually get our allocation to submit it. But we will only have 30 days to submit it once they notify us. I have to have a 30-day comment period from the time you approve it, and that's why the language in the listing says, and you're allowing us to make a determination that if we get less or more, the investment committee can make a determination on how to adjust those without coming back to council at that time if it is less than 25% of our total allocation. And that's a standard across the base. That's the only way we can get our reports in on time to HUD because they do not give us extensions for it. And so that's why we have to do it based on an estimate, and that's why we have the language in there that you would allow the investment committee to make minor adjustments. I think last year we got all of $7,600 more than I estimated. I tried to estimate low so that we adjust. On the second part, what it was that the committee had set aside $248,879 for the Community Development Department to do the land acquisition. What I said was, I'm not sure I could find enough properties and get them purchased in that time frame for that amount of money. Because right now we still have a 30-day comment period, have to come back to council for final approval and contracts. So the amount of time I have to actually spend and work on it and have it spent before December, I'm looking at maybe being able to do 4 or 5 projects realistically in that time frame because we have to come back to you guys on each approval before we can purchase them. So I'm being realistic about how many I could do in the time frame to make sure we've got our money spent down reasonably by December. So I had said I felt comfortable in the 100,000 range with the properties I've already started looking at and demolitions that we think we might do. That's what's reasonable.
So, and then just for clarification, so if we're talking about the 2017 funds that you're estimating, and if the committee had recommended that they stay within your department for the demolition and acquisition for affordable housing, And if that is approved and goes through for the plan, are we then locked in, then we could not reallocate those funds to another? I thought in the past we have, it comes through city council, but we do reallocate the funds if come October, September, you don't think you can get all those spent, we can allocate it at that time. So I want to stay with the recommendation of the committee, I guess is what I'm saying, and leave the funds in your department's hands until we see what you can do with it, since that's what the committee had invested. So thank you for the clarification, Barb. I'd love to go on, but I'm out of time, and the mayor's going to poke me here in a minute if I don't shut up. So thank you.
We'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to kind of clarify what I was thinking, and I just kind of threw this out there to get the conversation going, but I do mean it. We have $248,000 that will be allocated towards future project. Barb does not need that full $248,000 to do the work that she needs to acquire properties because of the time constraints. What I'm saying is if we have that money there from the federal government, rather than just socking it away, why don't we put it to use somewhere? And so I'm looking at the YFS letter, and this is just my suggestion, that we could say, could we take those funds towards a project like that versus just sitting there? I think Barb, if she's around, Barb, can you tell the council, get your steps in today, could you tell the council about how much you think you would need in that development fund to do the work that you need to do?
What I estimated was about 100,000.
100,000, so that would leave 150,000-ish. That's what I'm talking about. And so I'm using those funds to use them, and if she has to show some sort of estimate for the federal government to get the funding, I thought YFS does a great job boosting that neighborhood. It does a lot. It meets all the criteria to go to this grant, and so that is something I'd like to ask us to consider as we're discussing this, is putting the money to use versus having it collect dust on a shelf, which I certainly don't want to do it. I want to give her the money she needs to do what she needs to do and then allocate the rest of it accordingly. So that's what I'm asking us to do today. Thank you.
So what I think Alderman Solomon is saying without saying it is to, contrary to the way the item is titled, it would be to divert $150,000 of the $249,000, thereby not funding the Freelands Ranch. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, I haven't said anything about.
Well, I know, but
I'm talking. Excuse me.
Let's
If you're trying
speak plain English here, and then.
Community Development Fund, $248,000. She needs about $100,000 for that fund. So I'm saying at least that amount. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So less the $100,000 from that, unless you have another thing you want it to go towards. But if she doesn't need the full amount, we should do something with it.
Okay. John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, YFS does a wonderful job, and they are in my ward. I appreciate everything they do.
Yeah.
And also, there has been a drainage issue there for years. It was my understanding that most of the drainage was coming off the property itself and not the alley, but that, you know, a drainage issue is a drainage issue. We need to get it taken care of in that neighborhood, and I really appreciate what you guys do there. But with CBG funds, it's always been my understanding that we do try to spread them out amongst the community and not just pick one project or a couple of projects. And also, Freeland Ranch is in my ward too, and I think it's going to be a good project if it can ever get off the ground. And one of the things that we've talked about for years and years and years on this council is affordable housing. Well, this is what this project is for. It is for all affordable and low-income housing. So, you know, if we ever want to stop talking and start doing, we're going to have to fund a project like this, because you know, we need to do what they're going to do, which is going to be hundreds of homes instead of 3 or 4 or 5 at a time. We need to do it on a big scale. So anyway, I think that we were being fair, or I think Mr. Laurenti was being fair when he made the motion he made. I don't want to use up all the CBG funds. I could see where some other good project could come in within the next 6 months. So anyway, I just am hoping that we just take what Mr. Laurenti said. Thank you.
Charity Doyle.
Mayor, this is just a procedural question. Because we got the letter on YFS and we anticipated that going into committee last week, we did not anticipate the Freeland Ranch issue. I'm wondering if we could just separate the questions so that we do have adequate time to vet each of those issues separately. And if you could clarify if or if not we have a motion on the floor on the YFS portion, please.
Okay, we have no motion on the floor on this item. We can divide this issue between Youth and Family Services and Freeland Ranch because those things are indicated in the title of item 33. Any objection to dividing these? Okay, so we'll divide these, and the first part, which we've been talking about, is Youth and Family Services. So there is no motion on the floor for Youth and Family Services. Motion to approve. In what amount? Can you? $75,000. Okay. We had a motion to approve by Laurenti and a second by Jerry Wright for approval for Youth and Family Services for $75,000. And we'll go to Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our alley, correct? It's not our alley. It's private. Could somebody answer that for me, please?
I believe it's a public alley.
It is a public alley. Okay, and is there, when we kind of do the alley inventory, is it anywhere close to being at the top of that list?
We don't do an alley inventory, although I believe we did an out of the dust program here just not too long ago, when I say maybe 5 years ago. So I think there was some work that was performed there. To what extent it affected the drainage, I can't speak to that.
Okay. So I guess I should say publicly, since YFS has already raised some funds to help do this, thank you for helping the city meet its obligation of taking care of a public alleyway. We do appreciate that. I'm not sure if Jason's idea is going to gain any momentum today, but $75,000 would definitely help. Thank you for staying patient while we work through this.
Modrick?
Thank you, Mayor. Barb, if you could come up, I just want to make sure our numbers are clear on how this reallocation was placed. So YFS already had $100,000 designated, and then on our line item, there's $68,000 and that's part of it. So are we talking $100,000 they've got and $68,000 already towards the project that they had requested? Do those numbers balance?
Is that on? Okay, there we go. The way it was allocated out before Legal and Finance was that the committee allocated $68,000 total to YFS for the roof at the plaza facility. That $68,000, $30,749 was taken out of 2016 money, and $37,251 was to come out of our 2017 money to total $68,000. Then at Legal and Finance, the request was to take $150,000 away from community development, leaving $98,879 for doing the small houses, and that would allocate now the $75,000 to YFS out of 2017, which raises that amount to $112,251. They already have $100,000 of 2016 money that doesn't show on this sheet that was allocated in 2016 for this project. So they would have a total of $175,000 for the alley as it stands from Legal and Finance's recommendation.
Thank you for clearing that for me. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I can call Susan back up to the podium, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Fidel, just to clarify, the alley that you're referring to, I just want to make sure where I'm at in my understanding of it. The alley is located on basically from Maple Street to the center of your property. Am I understanding that area correctly?
It goes clear over to Milwaukee.
It does go through. So
we would do just the portion of it behind our property.
And then just further clarification is, if I'm understanding the water flow correctly in that area, it goes through that courtyard or yard that you have on the back center of your...
It flows into that.
Yes.
There's a big hill behind us, and so it will come off the hill and come down some of those roads and flows into our property at that point. And then when it flows off of our property, it goes to the properties to the south of us.
Correct, yes. And I'm just a little confused on that portion of it, going back to the original question, going from the, shall I say, the west side, going to the center of your property. I was thinking that was private property, it was your alley, and correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it is not our alley.
It is still remaining a public alley?
Yes.
Okay. There was some confusion back when I was an employee for that area and understanding that, so I just wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page as far as that alley is concerned. It is public property.
Yes, we have never been told anything but that.
Thank you. The other part of it that I'm concerned about is making sure that that water flows adequately and correctly from your property into the property that goes south.
Yes, the engineers have worked with the city departments to make sure that our plan would be a beneficial plan.
And what do those engineers have estimated that cost to be?
The alleyway, the part behind us, $287,000.
Thank you. I'll yield.
We have a motion on the floor to allocate $75,000 to Youth and Family Services. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say no.
No.
Okay, one no from Alderwoman Scott. Motion passes. Now on to the second half of that question concerning Freeland Ranch, which is listed in the title of item number 33, recommended for $75,000. We have no motion on this item. And we'll go to Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Barb Garcia, if I may.
Okay.
So this was sent through the Community Investment Committee, and they decided not to allocate any funds. Can you speak to why that was?
The initial request from Freeland Ranch was for $400,000 or $450,000. And the amount that we had out of either one, it would have had to come out and be separated. There was a question, just questions about the tax increment financing district. That is something that Mr. Haig said he would need to be able to have the project go on. However, his phase one project could move forward. It was broken down into a phase one, and I believe, and I don't want to speak for Kent, but I think he said he could go ahead with that without the tax increment district. So, but the $400,000, there was some uncertainty whether it would be going forward or not without it. And
okay, I'll pause right there. Then I probably need to shift to Mr. Haig, if I may. So while you're walking up, you know, we see a lot of these things, and sometimes memories fade a little bit. But I think I recall when this initially came through, that your project was centered upon RAI going in up there, which to my understanding is not happening now. Is that correct? Briefly, I only have 3 minutes left.
That has not 100% been determined yet. It's my understanding that they may be choosing another spot. Part of the whole premise of Freeland Ranch, though, from the very start, was always affordable housing. And REI, after we had announced Freeland Ranch so forth, Barb Garcia had put us together with REI as a very, I think, valuable component for Freeland Ranch to be involved and be part of Freeland Ranch, and it's a great location. But it's always been about affordable housing, not about having a place for REI.
Okay. Because I remember the whole concept, so I was surprised to see this come through. What do you intend to use the $75,000 for?
Right now, last year we received $119,000. And we used essentially all of that. I think we have maybe a little over 1,000 or 1,500 left in that fund. What we've used that money for is the engineering, the surveying, testing, antiquities.
Asking about the $75,000.
The $75,000. Barb mentioned that we have submitted a phase 1 proposal, and we did. That subdivision plan has been approved by the City Council. The phase 1, in order to go forward with that and get it to a bid level, biddable documents, I should say, to put together that bid plan. In addition to submitting on its heels a phase 2, which would actually include more residential. The only reason that has not been submitted yet is that a traffic study must be completed. A traffic study, we're probably talking between $12,000 and $15,000.
That's part of it. Study.
That would be part of the traffic study. It'd be for the fine engineering to get it to a biddable point. And it would also be for all the other preparations needed for the tax increment finance district, because contrary to what Barb had represented, the tax increment district, which we did submitted a district boundary last week to Patsy's office for a proposed district. And
okay, so we have the 119 of CDBG. Excuse me, I'm just running out of time here. We have the 75 that you're requesting now. You are coming forward with a TIF on this same property as well. This is a lot of taxpayer money that's going to this thing. My question for you is, it appears to me that just with studying something, what if the studies come back and tell you that it's not feasible and that money's gone? And I say this at a time when nationwide CDBG funds are drying up, and we're always kind of sweating it out to see if we're going to get what we're going to get. So I need something solid to tell me that this project is going to happen. And so to me, if I'm going to spend that money on studies, it seems quite speculative. So I don't expect you to respond since I'm out of time, but it just raises some concerns for me, particularly that this got walked on, and really we're hearing about it on the back end of a committee meeting as opposed to prior to. So I do have more questions for you. If anyone would love to yield their time to me, that'd be great. But
Okay, Jason Solomon will yield.
Okay, I'll come back in. Thank you. I see Lisa in the queue.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Kent, while you're there. So originally you had asked for $450,000, and it was to purchase 60 to 100 acres and cover pre-construction as well as infrastructure and roads. Have you already? You needed $450,000, and now we're looking at $75,000. Are you already invested? Have you already put that amount of funds into the development that you were originally requesting?
Not in cash. The $450,000 was for those reasons and to start on infrastructure. But as noted, there's $75,000 that was allocated for engineering, professional fees, et cetera, to keep the ball rolling and get the traffic study. And it's not a study as to whether or not it should go forward. We all are, I think, pretty conclusive that it's needed. Affordable housing is needed. It's not about that. It's about investing the additional funds to do a traffic study so it can comply with city requirements to approve the next phase. Phase 1 has been approved as a subdivision plan. Everything fits. The zoning fits. The uses fit. The proposed uses fit. So it's an excellent location. It's properly situated. we really haven't even entered our mind whether or not it should go forward. That's to us is a foregone conclusion that it must go forward. However, we have put hundreds of hours in this already gratis, and in a number of different ways. And the funding will be able to come from there's still a number of different sources for ongoing when it comes down to infrastructure, when it comes down to finalizing or literally putting land into the nonprofit that's going to be the owner of this whole subdivision, which is the Freeland Ranch, which is a nonprofit recognized by the Secretary of State's office. The incorporation has been issued. So we have every intention of marching forward. However, right now, to get it over the goal line as far as having additional criteria to be met, so phase 2 can be submitted as part of a subdivision plan as well. And that's, again, focuses mainly and mostly around the residential portion of it. As far as REI being there or not, we would love to have them there. We still think we're in discussions with them, but we would still love to have them there. However, with them, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask you, so did you make the purchase of the acreage? Is the acreage purchased?
We own, the Hague Brothers LLC owns that land. And the plan is to put the land into the nonprofit. So the deed transfers into the nonprofit for its ownership, and it's controlled by a board of directors separate from us. I am on the board, by the way, right now as one of the founding members. However, the land goes into the nonprofit as essentially a raw land price, raw land value. Then it has 40 acres, 50 acres, 60 acres, 100 acres, whatever it may choose to develop and continue to develop. And as it develops the land and sells different lots, a few of them are general commercial, office commercial, but mostly are residential. And as that sells, those proceeds go into the nonprofit to continue the development of that, to provide low-cost lots to affordable housing, whether it's private builders, whether it's land trust, whether it's habitat, but provide good low-cost lots to the affordable housing sector.
And before I run out of too much time, I just want to ask you then, what is your projection of groundbreaking on this development that's so needed in the community?
We're working in conjunction with the owners to the south, where the approach would cross their land, and it involves retention pond, conveyance of stormwater, and so forth. In that piece, as the TIF proceeds, and as we get these bids in place, and as we finish the traffic studies, we are then able to actually prepare to break ground. And the first part of the breaking ground, I guess that's the part what we're excited about, is with the owners of the South, where they would pay the upfront, provided there's a TIF in place. They would pay for the upfront, well over $750,000.
I have 15 seconds. What's the projected time frame? What's your projection? We have 10 seconds.
I would like to have the bid let within 60 days, let's say, and then have the groundbreaking happen as fast as can be, because that first piece of it is already designed and approved for that crossover.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hague, you mentioned a couple times that you'll be working with the owners of the property to the south. Who are those owners?
The owners of the property for Freeland Ranch?
No, the owners to the south that you keep referring to.
Okay, because the first ones are me, us, my brothers. It's Bill Gicklin and Jim Meyer that own that parcel.
Thank you. Barb Garcia, if you wouldn't mind coming back up to the podium, Barb. I already had my 5 minutes talking about CDGB funds, but I'm going to reiterate again why I did not support the last one and I'm not supporting this one. So I'm going to start with my basic questions again, Barb. The $75,000 that was proposed to go to the Freeland Ranch Community, Inc., is that 2016 funds or is that 2017 funds?
2017.
So again, we're talking about funds that, and I understand you have to estimate it, but the committee already estimated it and put it in your department to for demolition and for land acquisition. So to me, I know before we formed that committee, the city council had to approve the plans for the CDDGB, correct?
Yes.
I know I can't say that. So at that time, it was much like the Vision Fund. If a priority came before us, you would bring it to us saying, this is a really good project. We had funds allocated here. We now have the federal funds, and I recommend, if the council wants to take a look at this, that just because we formed that committee that does that work for the city council now, doesn't mean that the city council can't still allocate those funds as the funds become available down to our level if a project like the Freeland Ranch one, and it looks like it's going to break ground. We could still do this later in the year, could we not?
Possibly not. The reason being, the city received a sanction letter this year because we have a spend down ratio we have to meet. And we've had a large sum of money sitting here. As you saw, we had $653,000 that was not allocated, that we had to pull back. Quite a few projects have not moved forward. We had two housing agencies fold, and we got all their assets back. So we had all these funds. In January, HUD pulls a spend down ratio. If we are above 1.5% at that time, they can take any of the money that we are over, that we have not spent, and we would lose it forever. If we do that 2 times in a row, we lose our total entitlement. So we are under the gun to have this money, and the way our drawdowns go and the way their process works, and they give us no extensions, even though we won't hear probably until May or maybe June how much our allocation actually is this year. My year started in April. They will not allow us the extension for the lost months. And if we go to allocate these funds later, it takes 90 days. With the 30, I have to bring it to you, then we have to put it out for 30 days, I have to bring it back for a final, then we have to execute contracts that have to come back for the mayor to sign. We're talking at least 90 to 120 days from the time I try to reallocate money again. And at this point, by the time we hear when it is, how much we actually have, and then to try to find a project that's ready to go. That's been our problem. Even we put out ads trying to get people to step up to do these projects, and nobody did. We set our priorities, and we've advertised 4 times now and not gotten them. That's why they ended up putting it and saying, well, then we'll do it. If nobody else will, we'll go out and start, because I can purchase the properties, and then we can ask for people to build on them. But I'm afraid if we wait, because these were set aside as contingency funds, nothing has come forward, and it took all of those projects that you saw funded on here just to use up as much money as possible, and
So
we
then
still
that-
had 250-some thousand.
So I have 40 seconds left, and one of the things that has not been brought up tonight, but another, I believe it was a walk-on at the Legal and Finance, was the Mother Butler Center. And yet a motion was made to spend funds. So does the Mother Butler Center not qualify for these? Is that why it was not considered?
I would like to make a correction. They were funded fully. I have no idea why she came before, and she sounded like she didn't understand they were funded fully for what they asked.
Okay.
They were funded by the investment committee up front.
All right. Are there any other projects, and I have 5 seconds, are there any other projects that went before the committee that could use these funds that we have not heard from, since we've heard from YFS and the Freeland Ranch?
There were two inquiries, but they didn't come in to ask, that had asked for funds, and they didn't meet the qualifying for what we put out in our ad for that funding. Other than that, no, we pretty much funded just about everybody we could fund with what we had.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to first apologize to my colleagues. I mean, honestly, there's some parts of this that I thought I had my hands wrapped around this one fairly well, but I want to apologize because I tend to take pride in knowing exactly what I'm doing before I do it. So I want to start with that, but honestly, I'd like to see a motion to maybe have these funds retained in contingency for the foreseeable future, see if we have another project, because I sit on the TIF committee, and so there are parts of this that I already have a lot of questions on that would be probably very difficult for me to support at this point. And so if there's a motion, I would be glad to second it. I yield. Thank you.
Jerry Wright.
I'd like to make a motion to delay this for 2 weeks, if I may retain the floor, please.
Okay.
Point of just question to Barb. Can we afford to wait 2 weeks, Barb? Mayor, may I ask her that question?
Yeah, Barb, quick answer to that.
I honestly am not sure, because it will depend on when we actually get notified. They did pass a budget, and in the discussion it said CDBG would not be cut. So I do expect we will get funds. We will probably hear within the next, I think HUD has 45 days to notify us. So I think so.
Okay, Jerry Wright.
Okay. I don't have a second. May I continue? Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
second by Amanda.
Well, there's an old saying, haste makes waste, and I really resent having to discuss these kind of details at the dais and consume our time negotiating how we're going to do this. I think I would rather see a plan brought to us that specifically states what we're going to do, and we can move on it. So let's give it a 2-week delay and come back with a plan to either fund the Freeland Ranch, I think is a good program, or do something else. But let's have a plan, and that's not be negotiating here tonight. Thank you.
Lisa Modrick. Okay.
We got that. My substitute motion is to fund the $75,000 as it is on the request by LNF, and proceed forward without a delay.
Okay, substitute motion to fund Freeland Ranch for $75,000. Second by John Roberts. Any discussion? Jerry Wright.
Haste makes waste. I still think we're dealing with something here we don't have everything that we need to understand and make a deal with. I support the Freeland Ranch, but we're talking about CDBG money. We don't know how much we have, where it's coming from, what's going for, and all that. And I must admit, I'm rather confused, and I can't support confusion. So thank you. I think we need to wait 2 weeks and make a decision that is proper.
Okay, Jerry Doyle.
I think what Alderman Wright is asking is fair. When I'm looking down the pipeline, I'm seeing 2 rounds of CDBG awards to this project and a TIF coming down the pipeline. You know, hey, I might go into development. I mean, if I can get that kind of a deal, that's pretty cool. I do have some concerns, and again, because it was walked on last week, you know, there should be time to get some of these questions answered. Or I can't support it tonight, the motion as it stands. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hague, you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Please.
In your proposal for Freeland Ranch, how many single-family lots are there in the first 2 phases? Do you know?
In the first 2 phases are primarily made up of a like multiplex, like fourplexes or sixplexes, somewhat similar to the Marshall Goodman style, that have various sizes. They're not all really tiny. Some are pretty good size.
How many of those in the phase?
I wish I would have brought that with me. But that first phase, there's, I think, well over 70 dwellings in that immediate second phase, but that second phase will get access by the improvements of the first phase. But we did not submit the dwellings because of needing the traffic study to go forward. Once you exceed a certain density proposed, you must have the traffic study, which is fair. We're not arguing to doing that. We're just out of funds to do that. So.
Okay. I'm just kind of looking at some of these numbers here, because here recently we brought forward a proposal for another nonprofit, and they were asking for a $50,000 TIF, and I believe they got $30,000 in CBG funds. I know they'd asked for some. Barb, can you step up for a minute? The Monroe project, did they get some CBG funds?
No, they didn't qualify.
Okay, so they're just asking for a TIF on there. All right, thank you. But that TIF would be $10,000 a unit for Neighbor Works on that, if they get it. I'm just saying if they get it. So you're talking about 70 units. If you had a TIF at $10,000 a unit, what would that come out to? 700,000?
Well over 700,000.
700,000. But that's just the beginning of what you're doing. I'm just saying, you know, because you're also talking about apartments. I know you had 8 or 10 acres of apartment land on there, which could translate into, easily 70 to 100 apartments or more, and also more phases coming along. So what I'm saying is we are investing money. Okay, if there's 70 units in this first phase and we had 180,000 into it, that's less than $2,000 or $3,000 per unit. And in affordable housing, if you don't invest money into it, and it's unfortunate, you know, because if you were in a different spot in Rapid City, you could have applied for what are the dollars from the
tax credits
program. Yep, but you're north of I-90, so you can't even go in and apply for New Market tax credits because you don't fall within their boundaries. So the only other options that you have are the TIF or CBG money, or to offset the cost for these affordable houses. And if we don't offset them, they're not going to get built. I mean, we've got enough developers in this room, or people that have built in this room, that know what a single family lot in Rapid City costs now to develop. And you can't keep them in that affordable housing range. You just can't do it without some help from the government. It's unfortunate, but it's the way it is, and we have to look at public-private partnerships to get these type of projects done. Otherwise, they're not going to get done. So, thank you.
Thank you. And the development aspect of it, again, the development will be by the
Still asking questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Excuse me. The development aspect, answer Councilperson Doyle's comment, is that frankly, we've expended a significant amount of time and treasure in this deal. We are asking for the minimum amount of funds to actually complete the final studies that we've talked about, to get it to a biddable point, so we can talk with more specificity. But the bottom line is we're not the developer on it. This nonprofit is going to be the developer. That's the whole point behind it. When a developed lot is sold, those proceeds stay there to fund the ongoing operation and maintenance of the whole subdivision. So we want out of it. We just get out of it, let the nonprofit do its thing.
And I think that maybe that, you know, Mr. Wright's proposal of waiting a couple of weeks, maybe you could explain that more to the council, because I don't think a lot of the people on the council understand how that concept is going to work, that you aren't going to be the developer on the project. You're not going to be making money off of this project. It's going to be a nonprofit that ends up owning this project and develops this project in the future. So
that's time. Anyone else for discussion that hasn't already spoken twice? You spoke twice. Positive. Okay, we have well, you did. We have a vote on the substitute motion to award $75,000 to Freeland Ranch. Let's call a roll.
Solomon? Nordstrom? Roberts?
Yes.
Modrick?
Yes.
Wright? Laurenti?
No.
Scott? No. Doyle? No. Motion fails.
Okay, that motion fails, so we go back to the original motion, was to postpone this item for 2 weeks. Is that correct, Joel? Yep, so the motion on the floor to postpone for 2 weeks. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. That motion passes. The item concerning Freeland Ranch under item 33 is postponed to the next council meeting 2 weeks from now.
Thank you.
That takes us through consent. So now on to non-consent items, items 40 through 97. And we have a speaker request form from Janelle Fink on item number 40. It'd be faster if we drew a picture of it.
Sorry. I'm going to go ahead and start, and hopefully we get some light and are able to look at this. Good evening. My name is Janelle Fink. I'm with Fisk Land Surveying. I'm here on behalf of Waste Connections. We're here to ask for your support this evening on item number 40, but I'm pleased to say that we're not here to ask you for any CDGB funds.
Janelle?
Yes.
You might want to know that we can see the projection here. It's just not coming up where you can see
Oh,
it. So you can
okay.
go ahead and point
Great.
this out for us.
Okay, super. Thank you so much. The property that we're talking about this evening is property that adjoins the Waste Connections facility over on East St. Patrick Street. And I'm here this evening with Bob Novak from Waste Connections, along with some of the other gentlemen. You can all wave, let them know you're here. Thank you. Waste Connections is interested in purchasing the 2 lots that adjoin the 5 lots that they already own. The 2 lots that they'd like to purchase are marked in an X here, and they are zoned general commercial. In order for them to use them or expand their storage, they need to rezone that to light industrial. They already have 3 light industrial lots here and then 2 general commercial where their office is located. Waste Connections is, obviously they collect refuse and dispose of it, so it's a basic, but it's a very critical service in our community. To tell you a little bit about the company, they service nearly 20,000 residential and business customers in the Rapid City and surrounding area. They have 55 full-time employees with a payroll of over $2.9 million. Their total revenues are $16.8 million. In direct payments to our landfill, they pay $4,320,000 each year directly to our landfill, and then they collect and pay city sales tax in the amount of over $378,000. The lots that are in question here were actually created in 1976, and they are vacant lots, and they have remained vacant for 40 years. Originally, this property was in the county, but was annexed into the city, I believe, in the late 70s. Waste Connections has been in this location for over 16 years, and there were other entities similar, Waste Management, that was in for an additional 20 years. There is a significant history and precedent of light industrial zoning in this area. The precedent, most recent, was this area that was rezoned in 2010 from general commercial to light industrial. This parcel here is the Open Bible Church. In regard to the rest of the zoning, this area here is all zone light industrial that adjoins this, and it is comprised of almost 70 acres. We verified with the neighbors that they were in support of this, those 2 parcels that were most directly adjoining this. And we believe that it's important to be able to allow existing businesses to expand. It helps increase our tax base, and it helps us use infill lots so that our growth doesn't become sprawl. We ask for your support this evening. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer, or Mr. Novak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And there are no further speaker forms, so we'll close the public comment. And we'll start with ordinances under, starting with item number 40, and I'll ask our Legal Finance Chair, John Roberts, to read these in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 40, first reading ordinance 6168, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers Incorporated for Waste Connections Incorporated for rezoning from general commercial district to light industrial district for property located at 2510 East St. Patrick Street. And I recommend approval in conjunction with initial planned development.
Okay, we have a second by Jerry Wright. We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mary. I am in support of this, but Janelle, if you wouldn't mind answering a couple questions, just a follow-up. I did stream this when it came through the Planning Commission, and I'm trying to remember, I think since it's on East St. Pat, the plans call for some really good buffering for this project. I mean, their other property behind it doesn't actually border East St. Patrick Street, but these two lots will. Do I remember correctly?
They actually have 2 lots that do border St. Patrick Street,
Okay.
and there are 3 additional north of this. But yes, there was some discussion about providing some buffering, which is where the plan development originated. And the initial plan development plans call for a screening fence that'll be about 25 feet back from the property line with some significant landscaping in that area to help screen from the street.
But the other 2 lots, just for clarification, that are on East St. Pat, those are their offices on the south
Correct.
side of the road. Yeah, I was referring to the 3 lots to the north.
Correct.
They don't actually border East St. Patrick Street. They're kind of
is-
off that main street.
Yes, that's
right?
correct.
And then, I don't know, you mentioned a lot of statistics, so I was just curious. Does the expansion of this business, do they anticipate gaining more business for our landfill? You threw out a lot of figures, but I just didn't know, does it look like they'll be increasing more that they're taking?
Bob, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, actually, we grew quite a bit in the last year.
When you get to the podium, would you identify yourself, please?
Sure, I'm Bob Novak, Divisional Vice President for Waste Connections. We're really trying to accommodate some recent growth. We brought the assets of Red River Sanitation a year ago in May, and we're really trying to accommodate the expansion of that business into our lot without having to move outside of the city limits.
And so this is just the expansion of consolidating everything together?
Correct, that is
right?
correct.
Thank you. So like I said at the beginning, I am in support of this, and I did want to clarify that. I don't know how many other people think about it, but I do get people who always call me and just say, what is that going to look like from the street? So I just wanted to bring up that there was some buffering that was going to happen so that, you know, it had a good presentation on the front of those 2 lots.
Yep, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion on the floor is for approval of item number 40. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item 41, first reading ordinance number 6178, an ordinance to update campaign finance disclosure requirements by amending Chapter 2.32 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I recommend approval.
Second by Amanda Scott. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next item.
Item 42, first reading ordinance number 6179, an ordinance to update references to the Convention and Visitor Bureau related to Business Improvement District Number 1 by amending Chapter 3.24 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I recommend approval.
Second.
Second by Lisa Modrick. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Next on to Community Planning and Development Services items, we'll go to Public Works Chair Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 43 is a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers, Inc. for Rick Bentley and Ferdinand Dirt, LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Lot E of Lot 5 of North 80 subdivision, generally described as being located south of the western terminus of Bentley Lane, and I make a recommendation to approve with stipulations.
Second.
Second by Jason Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item.
Item number 44 is a request by Spurlick Consulting Inc. for Kent and Cynthia Guthrie for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1A and 1B of Block 2 of Skyline Pines subdivision, generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of Skyline Drive and Pevins Parkway. Make a motion to deny.
Second by Amanda Scott. All in favor, we'll go to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I know the recommendation is to deny, and I think we maybe need to say specifically what qualified that denial, so we understand that a little bit better publicly, if you could. Dale?
Dale Tech.
I was not present at the Planning Commission meeting, but there was spirited discussion from the neighborhood. The proposed zoning would be incorrect. They'd have to get a variance to the lot size, and I believe that the neighbors in that area really have invested in their properties to make sure that their lot sizes are maintained in that in excess of 3-acre size. So that was one of the primary reasons that the Planning Commission recommended denial of this request.
Thank you for putting that out there for us. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, motion on the floor is for denial. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Item number 45 is a request by KTM Design Solutions, Inc. for DKEA LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 13 through 14 of Block 2 and lots 9 through 22 of Block 3 of Red Rock subdivision, generally described as being located lying along LaHinch Street. I make a motion to approve with stipulations.
Second by Jason Solomon. All those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. This will take us down to our CIP committee items, and we'll go to Richie Nordstrom to have those read.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you like to take them one at a time, or can you take the set of group?
You might want to ask Joel, but usually 46.
We're acknowledging or approving capital plans in items 46 through 50. So let's take those first.
I'll do them separately then. Item 47 is item 46 is to acknowledge Capital Improvement Programs Committee monthly update for February 2017. I move to approve.
Second, Jason Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Item 47 is to approve the capital plans for government facilities, fire and emergency services, parks and recreation, and CSEC. I move to approve.
Second by Jason Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 48 is to approve the capital plan for fire vehicles, and I move to approve.
Second by Jason Solomon. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Let's see. Item 49 is to approve the capital plan for Parks and Recreation, and I move to approve.
Second by Solomon. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes.
Item 50 is to approve the capital plan for information technology, and I move to approve.
Second by Lisa Modrick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Item 51 is to approve financial reports for the contingency DCA charges, matching grants, and the Pennington County loan, and I move to approve.
Second by Jerry Wright. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 52 is to approve the capital plan for streets, drainage, and MIP projects, and I move to approve.
Second by Steve Laurenti. Jerry Wright.
I just want to remind the council and our community that we had an estimate of $38.5 million needed to meet our street needs, and this amounts to approximately $13 million. So just a little notification of our status. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mayor, Mr. Wright, Alderman Wright, we'll have an update for you coming shortly, I believe, and so stay tuned. We've got an update coming on that particular issue.
May I address that question? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Are we going to have a $35 million uptick or what?
At this point, that is to be determined by us, but we want to get some additional information before the council before we make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor is for approval, right?
Correct.
Herb, everyone who approves, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item.
Item 53 is to approve a $200,000 in CPI grant match funds with West Memorial Park improvements and up to an additional $25,000 for a proposed 2017 Stearns grant application, and I move to approve.
Second by Lisa Modrick. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This takes us on to alcoholic beverage licenses, items 54 through 97. I spoke earlier this evening with Police Chief Carl Jageris, and there are no issues with the reissuance of these licenses. I'll be asking for a motion for approval of items 54 through 97. Move to approve. Motion by Laurenti and a second by Wright. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to public hearing items 98 through 102. Just go to item number 98. A request by Doyle Estes and Kathy Johnson for DTH LLC for a resolution approving revision number 2, project plan reallocating project costs for tax increment District 54 for property described as being located north of Mall Drive and west of Haynes Avenue.
Motion is to continue this item to the May 15th City Council meeting.
Okay, second of that motion was Steve Laurenti. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That'll close the public hearing. Now on to consent public hearing items 99 through 102. Would the council like to remove any of these? If not, we could have a motion. Move to approve. Motion to approve by Laurenti, second by Modrick. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 103, bill list. We'll go to Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $4,545,328.16.
Motion to approve by Roberts, second by Doyle. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session. Okay, a motion by Doyle and a second by Modrick to go into executive session. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we are in executive session.
Motion to come back out of executive.
We have a motion to come back, and Scott, seconded by Charity Doyle and Richie Nordstrom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Chair. I make a motion to direct staff to make a counteroffer number 1 to Epic Advertising.
Okay, a second by John Roberts on that. We'll go to Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a substitute motion that we move into option 3. If I'm going in the right direction, Joel, I need some advice on that.
I think I understand what you're trying to do. You make the counteroffer with the exception of the provision in bullet point number 3.
Thank you.
Exclude that from the counteroffer.
That would be my motion.
Okay, we have a substitute motion on the floor to make a counteroffer subtracting bullet point number 3. Is there a second? Okay, that motion dies for lack of a second. We're back to the original motion to make a counteroffer consistent with the discussion in executive session. Correct? Option 1. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries with 1 no.
Second.
Motion to adjourn from Roberts, second by Laurenti. Any objection? Yes. We're adjourned.